I would like to introduce my panelist. I have Gugu Nkambinde, and she's from Gugu Intimates. She'll tell you all about her wonderful product that she has launched and also her journey towards this. She used to be an employee, like many people, and she managed to quit her job and start the entrepreneurial journey. So she'll tell us about that. And then we have Ben Shaw. He's from House Me, an interesting, well, it's not a startup now, it's quite advanced, but it's about how do we match you with the right landlord if you're a tenant, and the other way around. So he's created a very interesting app around that. And then we have Rapelang Rabana. She is somebody that's been around for a while. She did emphasize that, well, I'm seasoned, Matsi, why do people want to talk, to talk to me? But her story is also compelling. Her story is also very relevant this day and age, and she's from Rekindle Learning.
I was just the kid out of school and university who didn't want to keep playing the systems, and I sort of felt that from primary school you start one system, you work through that, you get to the top of that one, started high school another system, and university, and it just seemed like I was supposed to get a job and continue this game, and I just decided, that can't be sort of my whole life. And that was really some of the thinking that prompted me to find alternative ways to do life. And in that search for alternative ways to do life, it seemed that entrepreneurship was the only way I would be able to decide how I spent my time and what I gave my attention to. And that was really sort of, I didn't read business books, I wasn't that smart. But that was why I started my journey.
And Gugu Intimates is a passion project of mine, a lifelong project, I call it, because it's part of my own personal journey in becoming comfortable in my own skin for many reasons. As Black females, as brown-skinned girls in the world, there's always been a system that you have to try and kind of a standard to match up to. So as a marketer first, I've been through many corporate companies from Unilever, SAB, I worked for Bacardi at some stage, and every time I would leave, I would feel like I was limited in my thinking. I would feel like I was brought and given the colors and crayons and told only which ones to use to color. So, and my job in itself, the description of a brand manager, marketing manager, head of marketing, is always to identify consumer insights. So I was increasingly frustrated by the roles that I was in. And I think it was in jumping over from being a client to advertising agency about 3.5 years ago that my job really became to mine the insights and, to drive the insights that grow brands and grow businesses. That I started to ask a lot of questions, and I became comfortable in being allowed to ask them because I had a very encouraging coach, and I'd call him a boss, but he was a coach, and he always said, what else are you doing with this brain? Like, what do you do when you leave here, And I was like, I read, I do this. And he was like, no. But what else are you going to leave behind? So the story to Gugu Intimates was a little bit more like a personal problem. I was wearing a white shirt and coming from a client meeting across the road at Nedbank. And it was hot, and I got to a farewell lunch of a colleague who was female. And there was females around the table, and I said, what do you guys do under your white shirts? Like, I'm dying. Like, we have to layer, because I had to present. So I was very conscious of, will these guys around the table be looking right through my shirt? And these women were like, no, we wear this, we wear that. And I was like, but that's a problem. It's another garment in summer. That doesn't make sense to me. And I started to question more and ask, where is it? Where is something that can solve this problem? And it grew. And I started to experiment, okay, brown skin is a real thing. How do we make it, how do we create this solution for ourselves? And it was at that point that it dawned on me that this was a very specific problem for a very specific demographic. So therefore it was that demographic that was going to have to solve it.
I really just applied to wherever I could find a very steep learning curve. And it happened to be an investment bank, and spent some time there. The problem or the issue with investment banking is, unlike your coach who was very kind to you, investment bankers come back quite late at night and don't have much time to put their brain to work. So it took me 2 years to come up with with an opportunity that I really wanted to solve. And the problem that I had seen or what I had identified, and I have to admit a lot of it comes from the banking mindset, is the inefficiency in pricing of residential rental. And that became quite a big sticking point for me as I thought back to my years as a student, where I would have friends, colleagues, students next to me who don't have the same privileges and background, who would be asking me to go and visit flats or homes on their behalf just to get a rental. And that isn't a problem that only I've faced or have had, and I'm sure many of you relate to it better than I would. But the more I delved into it, the more I realized this is actually this is a significant issue, and it isn't just Ben thinking that from Santon. This is actually right across the country and potentially broader than South Africa. So went with an idea of simply pricing rental better so that it was more accessible. Flew down to Cape Town, met a few mentors, and pitched them an idea, and all of the other ideas that I'd pitched through Varsity, they had said, listen, thanks very much, Ben, good job, good luck. This one they didn't. This one they said, how much money do you need, when are you starting?
I started my first business in 2006, coming out of UCT. My classmates and I started Diego. Essentially, we had been sort of irritated by the high cost of telecoms all the times we were students, not being able to have any airtime to call people and overusing please call me's and things like that. So we thought, that given how much smarter phones we're getting and the growth of sort of 3G and Wi-Fi, we could do Skype stuff on mobile phones. And if you can think back to 2006, this was before iPhone and Android, and this was where your smartest phone was your Nokia N series and your Windows Mobile. It was a nasty world. And so we essentially developed some of the earliest VoIP apps on those kind of devices. And that was really sort of what launched our career there, because it was quite new worldwide. There were a couple of other companies in the UK and Israel doing that. And being able to sort of achieve that just with really cheap laptops and internet sitting in an apartment in Cape Town, for me sort of launched this forever sort of imprinted in my mind just how much technology and the internet can change the course of sort of someone's life.
What keeps me up at night is support. And I'm going to be very open about it, because I think we always try to address the challenges we go through with the lingo that we hear, so that we feel like we're playing the game and we're talking the language. The reality is this: as an entrepreneur with a vision that nobody but you can see, is that most times even the people who love you dearly will think you're crazy. So it is a lot of going inward that carries you for a long time. And I can say this now because I look around the room and I can count more than a handful of people that are here to support me, that came because I said I was here. And it's one of the biggest things I've learned is that funding is a real issue. But I'll tell you what's been more important: the people that held my hand when it wasn't coming. There really is a lack of genuine support for the entrepreneur. And it is the support that keeps the vision for the real companies that will change this country, that will change this continent, that are now coming from other entrepreneurs. So it keeps me up to wonder whether I am being for other entrepreneurs what they have been for me thus far.
What does success look like for you? Are you successful, or are you kind of well on your way to success? Define success for your business.
Sure, that sounds like a tough question. I think success is quite misunderstood, and I think I would hate to come out of this, that you've listened to us do this whole sort of panel, and the one thing you remember is that Ben Shaw defines success as this particular thing. Success is going to be different for everyone, and that's a good thing. And I think and I'd like to just echo, I think it was an excellent answer given about the support that entrepreneurs need to provide each other. We should also be celebrating other people's success in what they think is success. Mm-hmm. So to come out and say success is X, Y, Z is not a very useful benchmark to set. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is everyone has a particular goal that they're aiming for. And that goal might not be the same for me as it is for the next person. But whatever that is that you reach, we should be able to celebrate.
Rapella, so being young, gifted, I'm not going to say black, sometimes you don't have all the capital that you might require. It's a bit of a challenge to get it because you don't have that track record, you don't have that experience. How have you overcome that? It's something that could play as a disadvantage, being young and being in business. How have you overcome those challenges?
So I think for both the two businesses I've been building, I approached it quite differently. With Yego, we set out from the beginning to find angel investors, and we were pretty lucky to have done that. I was in the role of primarily sort of doing the investor relations, and what came apparent to me is that after approaching all the banks and government organizations, and everyone was, sweet, cute, lovely, but no, we're not giving you money. You kind of stopped. I sort of stopped searching for a while, and ended up more looking for sort of advice and trying to build relationships with people in the sector who could just sort of perhaps guide us. And what I found interesting from that was that when you've shown them that you actually respond to emails, you get back to them about their queries, that you've developed further in the 3 months since they first met you, now they're like, oh, okay, they start opening up their trust networks to you because you've shown. And for me, it was just surprising that those small things, count for so much. But now when I'm engaging with other entrepreneurs, I can see, because there are people that actually don't know how to return an email, who won't answer the question you pose to them. And it's quite surprising how actually few people can consistently follow through. And that actually then sort of, I think, helped a lot of people separate us from just some kids who were talking stuff. And because we also built a prototype, we didn't sort of wait around for the funding. We actually had a prototype that worked, 50% of the time of our own steam at that point was pretty critical for anyone to take us seriously. And I think that was instrumental in us getting that funding.
So as a person in the marketing space, we have a lot of conversations about branding and appearances and how things, seem to be. And it often concerns me, because it was one of the reasons why when I was in corporate at some point, I used to worry about what do youngsters look up to and who are they mirroring themselves against. And I always say they can't be mirroring themselves against smoke and mirrors. My view on the stars and the shine is that we've actually unfortunately got a very lazy entertainment and media industry. So they literally sit on social media and wait for something new. And I observed it. I mean, I previewed my brand in March because I felt in my gut that if I didn't move first, this thing was such a low-hanging fruit. It didn't make sense to me why nobody else had done it. So I previewed it more so for my my strategy was to corner and make sure that I have that first mover, and it's always there that this brand was here first. There was all this reach for interviews and, come on to this and come on to that. And I immediately made the call to get someone to manage that for me, because I'm always quite objective on personal branding and others, but I immediately saw how those entrepreneurs get caught up in the hype. So it's what came first. Is it the entrepreneurs who are just positioning themselves with nothing going, or is it that there are people who are just mining on social media, waiting for that thing so that they break the next news, and they don't care whether this person... No one ever asked me where I was in my business. They were just excited about the idea, and I pushed back. I always made sure, and Janine would always say to me, this person wants to speak to you, I've asked them for the questions, I'm not letting you speak to them before we know what they want. And I respect that a lot, because I think we also have a mandate as entrepreneurs to build the story and the reality of what it is like in this journey.